Hey guys, welcome back. So today we want to talk about a topic that has been brought up to me several times in the comment section of various videos, and I think it's time to address the issue because I don't think we've actually addressed this before in a previous video. And the issue is, should felons, once they've paid their debt to society, should they have their rights restored? And we have some interesting statistics. We have Dave joining us again today.
Hi, good to be back.
And we also have Jason joining us today for our roundtable discussion regarding the subject. And it's an interesting subject. So fairly recently, I saw some prominent Democrats in D.C. saying that they believe that the rights of felons should be restored once they pay that debt to society. Only to vote. Does not include restoring their Second Amendment rights. Of course, it makes sense that they just want them to be able to vote because they think that if they give them their rights back, that they'll vote for them, and it's a political ploy. They don't want to give all the rights back. They just want to give the one that benefits them back. Mm-hmm. But the bigger question is, if somebody is convicted of a felony, they go to prison or, whatever the punishment is, once that punishment is complete, do you guys think they should have all rights restored?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree too. I think most of us would probably sway more towards a libertarian stance on that, where once you pay your debts to society, that your rights should be restored.
I agree.
It doesn't come without risk and peril, but I mean, it's the United States. There's always trade-offs.
So, people are going to throw the what ifs at you, right? Mm-hmm. So what if Ted Bundy had gotten out on parole? Should he have his rights reinstated, right? Ted Bundy, for those you don't know, is a serial killer that was executed a long time ago. Or John Wayne Gacy. If somehow he found himself out on the streets again, should he have his right to vote and Second Amendment rights restored? And I think those are extreme cases. Right. I would say that if you're too dangerous to be trusted with your rights because you're a serial killer or whatever, then you probably shouldn't be out of prison. Right?
I think that's absolutely right. I think it's, when it comes to these concepts, we're kind of pigeonholing into felons, having firearms rights restored, Second Amendment restored. But that automatically flows into a bigger conversation of, okay, if we're going to keep prison sentences long, prison reform, are we going to reduce sentences for lower level misdemeanor crimes, which drug offenses or whatever? It kind of all flows into that conversation of how do you make the logistics work, right, of extending prison sentences for violent crimes, and also making room, in the prison system, and an overly crowded prison system already. Yeah. How do you make those logistics work? So it's not always simple.
We talked about this before, that it seems like the felony bar keeps getting lowered and lowered. Like, jaywalking seems to be like becoming a felony nowadays. Like it seems like they're always creating new and different crimes that land you in that felony category, and so...
Yeah, they do. They keep lowering the bar. Farting in public could be a felony here shortly. It's just everything becomes a felony. They just keep lowering that bar, and a lot of people get tangled up in that. And a lot of folks, I think the national statistic is 1 in 3 have some sort of a criminal record, mostly misdemeanors, maybe like DWIs or whatever it might be, white collar crime, whatever it is. I would say the vast majority of felons that do 5-10 years and get out, they're not a danger to society. If anything, because the way our prison systems are structured, I don't believe that they're structured to enable convicts to reintegrate into society. I think a lot, especially federal prisons, are brutal places where it's all about punishment and not so much about trying to reform people, as people like to say. It's all about punishment. So you might be a low-level felon, wind up in a really nasty state or federal prison, and come out even more dangerous because you were forced into a gang just to survive or whatever. Right? So our prison system, I think, needs massive reform. But on the same token, we do have to be able to punish people that do really, really bad things. Take the 4th of July shooter. Should that guy ever see the light of day again? No. If by some chance he got paroled? No, he doesn't get a gun again. He's already demonstrated he is not responsible with the firearm, right? He's a serial killer. So, so there are those areas where people are going to what if it to death, and we can play that, what if game forever, and I don't want to get dragged down into that minutia. But what's interesting is some of the crime statistics, and one of the statistics I found is that about 27% of ex-cons are unable to find work.
I know.
And this goes back to background checks. So this is interesting. So when I entered the workforce, 30 years ago, there wasn't a background check. You filled out an application, they interviewed you. If they had a good feeling about you, you got the job. Now, when you apply for jobs, it goes so far as some employers requiring access to your social media accounts to see what you've posted politically to see whether or not you're going to be hired. And they certainly will run a background check through the FBI system to see if you have a criminal past. And if you have a criminal past, you don't get the job. And that's not fair either.
I know, because I would venture to guess there are some people in that system that once
Millions.
they do get out, they're probably a better hard worker than anybody in the United States. And they're trying to, all right, I did this, I paid my dues, and now I'm just trying to reset.
But society just keeps kicking
and
them.
they didn't. They won't hire them. They won't give them a chance. They won't do anything. They can't do anything, and they're just shunned. They're put away, whatever. And next thing you know, it's like, well, go back to that life of crime. That's the only option they get put into because nobody will allow them the opportunity to excel.
Right.
Or to get anywhere. And so that, once you do pay your debt to society or whatever it is, and like you said, what if everything to death, but right there, everything should be restored. You should have the same opportunities as everybody else in terms of jobs, your rights, vote, buy guns, enjoy the, weather, get loans, whatever it is.
Once that debt's paid, you should be free and clear.
Right. So,
and
and I see this all the time. I can't get a job because I got a felony on my record. I'm like, well,
like a DWI or something,
great,
right? Or
great guy, or a great girl, whatever it is. Like the way you're working right now, holy cow, you work better than 90% of the people I've ever come across. So
they definitely become second-class citizens.
But you've already talked. I mean, you've already said there's limits to that, right? There's the extremes, and so at a certain point there has to be some sort of line drawn. Like you said. Murder, rapist, some chances to get out. So there's got to be some sort of line or judgment call to be put in there. And
there is violent crime.
That's not that statement can't be followed 100%.
Right.
Right. So where does that draw the line? I mean, for me, it's all about dividing up, violent offenses versus nonviolent offenses. I mean, I think most of us would agree if you show, tendency, violence, murder, rape, these extreme
MS-13 membership,
that there might be a separation. So can we say, hey, if you pay your dues, you're clear, or you just say, hey, violent crimes, we need to make penalties longer and more severe. And then on the low level, there needs to be a separation where you have shorter sentences and more allocation of resources for reintegration, so that you're making the worst more punished,
right,
and making the nonviolent less punished and more resources for rehabilitation.
Yeah.
Is there rehabbing murder? Is there rehabbing rapist? Is there rehabbing
there could very well be rehabbing
child
murder.
abuser. I mean,
again, we're getting into minutia. You get into the what if things, right? And so when you're saying like somebody goes to prison for a violent crime, they should be treated more harshly and maybe put in with other violent criminals, and then folks that are white collar criminals, or they just found themselves in a bad situation. They got drunk in a bar fight and accidentally killed somebody. Was not intentional, was manslaughter, second degree murder, whatever. You don't want to put them in with lifers that are going to turn them into something even worse potentially. But that to me is everything is so dependent upon that individual case, because there are a lot of people in prison right now for violent crimes that were either unintentional, It wasn't something like showing a pattern of violent crime. It was, what if you walked in and some dude's with your wife in bed in your house and you just lose your mind and shoot him? You do your 15 years and get out. Should you have your rights restored? Yeah. I mean, that's a crime of passion. The guy's not a killer. The guy's not just roaming the streets looking for victims, right? So you can what if this to death and making it black and white. Violent criminals, never again. White collar criminals, yeah, you get your rights back. I think it's more nuanced than that, right?
But therein lies the problem, is that if it's each an individual case, and we look at the way that a lot of our judicial systems operate, they don't have the time, efficiency, or frankly, the trustworthiness of a lot of the public to make those nuanced decisions all the time, which is kind of where we've ended up where we're at.
I would just say the worst of the worst, the serial killers, the school shooters, the people that go out and just commit heinous acts. Those are the ones that should never see the light of day again. So it shouldn't even be an issue or not whether they get their Second Amendment rights back or their right to vote back, because they should be locked away forever or put to death, whatever it is you believe in.
Yeah, if they never get out, then
it's not a problem, right? So the worst of the worst should be taken care of. If you're too dangerous to be in society, it doesn't matter if your rights are restored or not. If you're a dangerous person that just likes killing people, you're going to go do it anyway. Right, so they shouldn't be out roaming the streets if we know that to be the case. So it should be those that are released that paid their debts to society should have their rights reinstated. And so it's really interesting that our country incarcerates more people than a lot of other countries. I think we have like 2.5 million, 2.3, 2.5 million people in incarceration right now as we're recording this, as of 2020 statistics. And that's a lot of people, man. That's a lot of people sitting in prison. And you got to think that most of those convictions, people sitting in prison, it isn't for murder. It's for any number of things, from check fraud, mail fraud, drug sales, stuff that most of us would agree are crimes, but not worth losing your rights over. Do your time, get out, go vote, go shoot, do what you're going to do. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why I look at it too. Like you did your time. And you get out of there, you're like, messed up, whatever it is, I'd like to restart.
And they shouldn't be discriminated against in the workforce either.
Right. Where's the pathways for them? Where's anything for them? It's just, and again, the shooting sports is one of those things that you get people into the shooting sports, the camaraderie, the brotherhood that comes with that can generally help uplift people and want to be more oriented with their community and things like that. Because when we go to events or when we go shooting with others, the smiles on people's faces as they're hitting punching steel or punching paper or getting that tight group out of their new rifle they just picked up, there's a bond there that takes place, and it's something to bond over and enjoy, and in terms of just giving some of their rights back so you can vote and vote for me is really dumb.
Well, that's typical politicians, right?
But being able to restore everything that you had before you went in, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So
here's another interesting.
You can't pick and choose the rights. If you're going to give them the rights back, you got to give them all.
You can't just pick and choose one or two and be
I totally agree.
Of these,
I think that's total BS. Yeah, that's just democratic nonsense. Anyway, so another thing I found really interesting, because there's this huge emphasis, even in this most recent land shaking 30-year, oh my gosh, we passed the most substantial gun bans or gun legislation in 3 decades. And believe me, the whole NICS background system check is something that I've been opposed to since day one, right? And this feeds into that. According to 2020 statistics, roughly half or less of FBI crime statistics are updated in their database. And these are the people conducting the NICS checks. I have a story that kind of goes along with this. A friend of mine, he had an ex-fiance that made a false allegation against him of domestic abuse. It was false. And had him arrested. He lost his 2A rights. He went through the court system. She confessed that she made it up. She confessed. Have it in writing from her own hand that she made the whole story up because she was mad because he called off the wedding. And she just wanted to punish him. It took him almost 15 years to get his rights back, even though she confessed to that. So the state expunged all that, threw it all out. He came in to buy a gun after he got the expungement, and he was denied by NICS. Why? Because the FBI doesn't update its data records. And so he had to get a lawyer and fight, and it's not an easy fight, and it takes a long time and a lot of money.
If I remember right, they didn't even want to update it. They're like,
yeah,
too bad.
And so, but this feeds into a bigger problem with this whole NICS nonsense. You're like, oh my gosh, that shooter had a background. He was suicidal. He had the police called to his house, and the NICS system didn't work. Well, yeah, because nobody puts any data into it. The states don't put data into it. The FBI's too lazy to update their records. It's a useless system. It's not stopping anything. All it does is harass normal gun buyers.
I feel like it's easier to click the little icon that says deny when this name's run than it is to unclick it. You know what I mean?
Well, I think the big issue too, I mean, they don't give you a solid and constitutional recourse for appeal or any sort of contact to NICS to be able to make your way to good. So
it's hard just to find somebody to talk to.
The appeal process for the NICS system, I think their processing time I've seen anywhere from 3 months to well over a year. Which, if it is a chance, like I've had customers falsely denied by false identification.
All the time.
They have family members that are prohibited people, and even though they put their social and everything, they still are denied. And then they have to wait years sometimes before they're given the approval from NICS to purchase legally.
What about the customers that come in that are going through a divorce and they didn't know that their spouse, through their attorney, slapped them with a restraining order?
Yep.
The minute that happens, FBI will update that information because they want to deny you a gun. We've had customers come in like, I've been buying guns my entire life. What's going on?
Right.
Are you going through a divorce? Yeah. What's that got to do with it? Better talk to your attorney because I'll guarantee you your spouse just slapped you with a restraining order.
Yep.
And in Indiana, I believe it's almost an automatic thing, unless you.
I'm not going to say for sure it is still that way, but I know a decade ago or so,
right,
that I had
once a divorce was filed,
so it was an automatic protective order that's put against the husband,
right,
in Indiana, and I haven't witnessed that happening in a while.
Okay, so hopefully they change that.
So I don't know if it's been changed or not.
I hope they did, because that's
I had
total.
2 customers who were consistent buyers that came in, they're filled out the check, instant denial. And I had to tell them, like, sorry, you're denied. Well, why? Well, we don't know. They don't tell us.
They don't tell us, yeah.
So you have to write into the appeal process. And on the one guy, I asked him, I said, have you gotten divorced recently? He goes, well, yeah, you just filed a couple of months ago. I said, good. You probably have a protective order put against you from that. Your lawyer should have lifted that and known about it. And then he got his lifted within a few weeks. The other guy, it took him a year.
Yeah, because keep in mind, those records that the FBI is not updating. So the lawyer will get that expunged to get it taken off the record because it's total nonsense. But the FBI's already been notified that you're potentially a domestic abuser. You have a restraining order placed against you, and now you got to go to the NICS system and try to convince them, no, you need to look at the local court records. And it takes a lawyer, takes money, takes time, and it's totally harassing.
So that's people that haven't even been to prison.
Yeah,
I can only imagine if you were a felon, did your time, reintegrated into society, trying to get your rights back, it would.
Well, right now it's an impossibility.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But I'm just saying, even if it was, it sounds like just the way the NICS is laid out.
The way the government is laid out.
Probably get tired of it and just quit. And it's almost like that's what it's designed to do.
Yeah.
Because I remember, and this has nothing to do with guns, years ago, traveling with guns back home out of the military, I had them in their lock cases and padlocks and TSA tape and all that. Well, somebody had, cut my locks off. And they even lost the bag. And I was like, there's guns in that bag, right? And so all of a sudden they found them. All my locks were cut. And they put them in there because they said they had to re-inspect them. Why, I don't know. Well, I was like, well, I've spent a whole bunch of money on these locks. I want those locks paid for. You had no reason to cut them off. They gave me these forms. Dude, it's like 20 pages, all these receipts, Jesus to co-sign, all this other stuff. And I'm like, I don't even want to go through this. And that's kind of what it seems like, is there's so much, hoops to jump through that they want to discourage you from going through the process.
That's what they're doing with gun ownership. With all these laws, they keep passing more and more laws. They're trying to make it more difficult, more cumbersome, more time consuming, more annoying, so people just simply don't want to exercise their rights. And that's part of the drive behind the whole political agenda of the anti-gunners. But yeah, so I think we're all in agreement, and I would be interested in hearing from folks in the comment section.
I would too, yeah.
Because I'm sure opinions are going to vary. Some people really think that once you're a felon, you should never be able to vote or have a gun again. Now, I think most of us are more libertarian minded. I certainly am.
But, I mean, we've all agreed that there's a limit there too.
Yeah, I mean, so, if the fourth shooter got out on parole, I don't want him having a gun again.
No. So there's same here. Like if something like that, all of a sudden,
John Hinckley Jr. just got out of prison. The guy that tried to kill a president. You can. There's people doing more time on drug charges than a guy that actually tried to kill a sitting president, and he's out running around right now. Should he have a gun? No. He's an attempted presidential assassin. The guy's not right in the frickin' head.
That means
if the guy that killed John Lennon got out, I mean, same thing, right? It's like
if he had that premeditated motive to take out,
stalked him, hunted him,
right there, that's prohibited. That's to me, in my mind, that's a prohibited person from having any rights restored, if you will. So we all agree that there is some kind of line.
He shouldn't be out of prison.
Once it's met,
that guy should die in prison.
Well, I think that's the discussion. Is that line, like I was talking before, is there a line that separates, like beyond this line, they just don't get out?
Right,
exactly.
And I think that's that line, right? Once you're in society, rights restored.
Yep.
If you're too dangerous for society, then you need to rethink the parole system, or you need to rethink whatever. But yeah, I mean, it just seems like common sense to me. But I'm sure there's going to be people that disagree. There's going to be people that are either fence setters or...
There's so much nuance and stuff. And to me, this topic leads to so many different topics about government efficiency, drug legalization, all that kind of stuff that is like... The society needs to make a choice. At what level do we decriminalize stuff to bring efficiency and resources back to give, whether it's rehabilitation or being able to adequately house, permanent life offenders.
Right.
And I think, we got our point across, but man, I'm sure the comments are going to blow up in how many different ideas, and
I would like to hear
a bunch of different what ifs
for sure. That's what I'd like to read their opinion.
Maybe I'm overlooking something.
Cuss word riddled thing, but you know what I mean. Like, I'd love to read them. So
I think there's a big difference between mindsets of different folks with regards to politics and things like this, right? So as I think you brought up, we're libertarian. That's kind of a nebulous term. It can mean a whole lot of stuff, but generic. I'm a strict constitutionalist, and I am not in favor of big government. I think government belongs in a box, a very small box. The Constitution laid out enumerated powers that the federal government has. Anything outside of that falls to the state and the people. And we've gotten so far away from that, it's unbelievable. The federal government is a massive thing that controls every aspect of our lives. And when it comes to them, harassing you and charging you with bogus crimes and whatnot, I mean, I'm absolutely in favor of second chances.
And I think,
especially when dealing with this government,
the way I look at it is if you start peeling back the all that overarching power that we've given the federal government, you start peeling back, taking away one piece at a time. A lot of these big nuanced issues start to solve themselves because of, like I said, increased efficiency, increased availability of resources, all that kind of stuff where, we aren't just relying on the feds anymore to make those decisions and handle that
right.
stuff.
Yeah,
exactly. So I think that's a big thing when you talk about, being a constitutionalist. I think that's the big thing is we're all for repealing federal power, and I think a lot of these things,
all those powers need to go right back to the states.
A lot of these problems end up, the solutions become way clearer once that federal power is stripped away.
Yeah, and that's what we all should be pushing for. Is stripping those federal powers away and giving the states back their rights and their autonomy. But that's a whole separate different conversation. Right. So, guys, I really do look forward to the comments down below because this is a hot button issue. I mean, you're going to have strong feelings one way or the other, and I look forward to reading those opposing viewpoints or even viewpoints that agree with us. But do what if it in the comment section, because maybe there's something we're overlooking here, and I'd like to see what that is, and maybe it would, be something that would cause us to have a second conversation on the topic.
Absolutely.
So comment down below, guys. We get a lot of video ideas from you guys doing that. If you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel, the best way to do that is to become part of our Patreon family. There is a link in the video description below. You'll get early access to videos like this one, direct access to me. I answer all private communications with some other perks. Also, right here on YouTube, you got that little join button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Mash that join button and support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. And last but not least, guys, please swing by, check out coppercustom.com. Thank you for 14 years of support. Be safe out there. We love you guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care, guys.
Bye.